Good morning, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is episode, we think, 8 of TV time. Math is hard, apparently, for some of us around here. We might have skipped a couple. I don't know. We're going with 8.
Sure.
And this is our TV-centric talk show, news information show. And we have a few stories that we're going to go over today, and then we have our pop choice of the week. And it's going to be pretty, well, duh. But we want to get into a couple things that happened over the last week. Now, we're not going to talk about Walking Dead. And part of the reason we're not going to talk about Walking Dead is we're not caught up.
Right.
Janice has started the process of getting caught up. And pretty much everybody has talked about what happened with Rick.
Right. I'm trying not to listen so it doesn't get spoiled.
Right.
And we're down to one PS4 in the house right now until we get something so that we can both watch TV at the same time.
Yeah. And I have tomorrow off, so I'm getting caught up on Resistance tomorrow. So I might do a Resistance review at least maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens. So we're going to start off with The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now, we are 3 episodes from the end.
Right.
And it has been really good.
Yep.
I have really enjoyed it. The teen angst thing I was a little worried about, but we'll do a full review of the series when we get to a point. But what has happened this last week is the Church of Satan, the real Church of Satan, has filed a lawsuit versus Netflix and Warner Brothers for $50 million for using what is this word?
Baphomet?
Okay.
Baphomet?
Their goat-headed deity in the show. And they are claiming copyright infringement and defamation of character.
See, I don't think defamation... I think they put the Church of Satan in a pretty good light in this show.
So far, I'm not saying that it's good or bad either way. We're not super religious people, so that whole conversation is different. But the trademark infringement is pretty bad. That one's pretty bad for me.
That they trademarked a deity, or that Warner Brothers didn't catch it?
That Warner Brothers didn't catch it.
Yeah.
That's almost like they opened a book and they went, oh, here's the Church of Satan's deity. And then they made a sculpture of it. And then they realized later that there's actually is a Church of Satan.
Yeah. Well, I sort of maybe get it, just because like when this first came out, we were talking about it, like the Catholic Church doesn't have a copyright on the Pope,
right,
or Jesus, or
Jesus on the cross or whatever.
Yeah, so it's not like you would think that they copyrighted. A little weird. Weird.
It's that part I actually find odd. Now I'm not saying what their church is wrong or right or whatever. That part but them making the decision, it's like it almost has the feel of the Muslims not wanting to have Allah's, versions of Allah made and stuff like that.
It
almost it kind of has that same kind of feel,
which is fine.
Right.
That's a religious belief or whatever. This is, the Church of Satan wants to be taken seriously.
Right.
And I think Sabrina does. In no way do they make fun of what they're doing. They're taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
But then you go and copyright your deities, and that's kind of...
Yeah, it seems a little bit more business based than it is actually like religious based and stuff like that. There's
whatever.
A bunch of quotes from the Church of Satan, and it's a lot of legalese. But the one part in here says to be the central part of its effects to promote First Amendment values of the separation of church and state and equal protection, adding that the Netflix series promote use of this symbol as the central focal point of the school associated with evil, cannibalism, and murder blurs, and tarnishes the satanic temple. I understand that this is their point of view, but I'm struggling with it because of the copyright thing. I wouldn't have copyrighted it, but but it would have been nothing to have Warner Brothers or Netflix call them up and say, hey, can we use a version of this? And Netflix is saying, and Warner Brothers is saying, they have enough points of difference, so it's going to be down to legal stuff.
Right.
And I made the joke when the story first came out, before the $50 million was actually announced, that Netflix will write a check and say, I'm sorry, and they'll go away.
Right.
$50 million is a different conversation.
Right. No. And, okay, two things. What happened to freedom of speech, right? So you can defamate Christianity on TV. That's okay. But you can't, what they consider defamate.
Right.
Freedom of speech. You can... People can choose not to watch it, or channels can choose not to air it, or studios can choose not to film it.
Right.
But they have the right. That's different than the trademark thing.
Trademark, right.
What was the second thing I was going to say? Now I forgot.
You were on a roll, so.
I know. What did you said that, never mind. Oh, the $50 million.
Oh, yeah.
So the second thing, when we first heard about this, they're a nonprofit 501c3. I know what that means. We belong to one of those, and I've been kind of in charge of making sure we don't do anything wrong against that. That's a profit.
Right.
$50 million is a pretty big profit, and I don't know how they're going to explain that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the lawsuit's going to be thrown out, but I do feel like the lawsuit, at some point in time, the judge will kind of maybe roll their eyes and go, everybody just go in a room and figure this out and then come back.
Yeah.
And
here's $2 million. Go away.
Right. And we'll change the deity for season 2. But they're asking for, like, the church is also asking for them to not even distribute season 2. Like, they are asking them to, like, void everything, take it off the show.
You ask for
channel.
the world, you ask for the moon, and you get, a tiny little island.
Yeah. You have a representative on set when they're doing it. Whatever. It's funny that this was kind of a bigger deal than it probably is a big deal, but it's hard to take somebody seriously when they're pointing their fingers about proper representation of their God, and then when they get representation, it wasn't the right way. Like, that's kind of how it feels. Like,
yeah, and like I said, I feel like they are, the Church of Satan has kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes, and I get that they kind of feel butthurt over that.
Right.
This is an opportunity for them to help smooth that over, get rid of some of that, because they don't make fun of it. They're very serious about that in this show. So, like you said, have a representative on set and make sure that you're doing it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
They've never said they were the Church of Satan, by the way, on Sabrina.
Right. No, they've only used the deity itself, and so far I don't remember if they've actually said the name of it, but maybe they did, and I just missed it.
I don't think they said the name of the deity.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's just weird, and we'll keep you up to date, and we'll do a full review of Sabrina when we get done, probably Tuesday. We're gonna do it very quick. We've already talked about the Bodyguard on Netflix. We finally finished it. It is a super intense sit down. You have to pay attention to show. English, political espionage, dealing with crime bosses and terrorism and bombings and political maneuvering and it was a lot of stuff going on, and it all makes sense. But there was multiple times where I was like, what side are you on?
Yes, there were several people you couldn't figure out what side they were on, and then there was a lot of deflection, right? So it's like, oh, it's this person, but the stuff that, without spoiling anything, the stuff that's happening to what was his name? The
Yeah.
bodyguard.
I want to say Connor.
You didn't make any notes.
I didn't make any notes. I threw it in last minute.
The bodyguards, the stuff that was happening to him was so next level. Like the people that they were kind of pointing to, you're like, I don't know that they have the resources or the know-how or whatever to have done this stuff. And then when you finally find out, like, it was someplace completely different. And
you're
like
4 layers above whoever was the one actually doing the stuff.
And you're like, oh yeah, now it all makes sense.
Yeah,
But it was pretty intense. It had the biggest opening in the UK of any show ever on the BBC. I want to say 14 million.
We talked about this last week. It was something like that.
It was
like
10 to 14 million.
Yeah, it was a huge opening for them.
Yeah.
And with a lot of people that aren't really known, at least here in the States. And so it's been getting some small buzz. That's why we keep talking about it, is because we want more people to see it. But it did have the
girl who played River before the
Melody or whatever.
Melody, Melody Pond. She's in it, and there was somebody else that was in it too that we were like, but you have to actually watch British television.
Yes, and we watched quite a bit of British television. Luther season 5 is coming, so
right,
because we don't have time to watch anything else. Our pop choice of the week this week is going to be, like I said, kind of an obvious thing, but there's a reason we picked it, and we picked Breaking Bad. Now, if you have not watched Breaking Bad, it is some of the best television ever made. And talking about layers upon layers upon layers of stuff going on and making a couple of careers. And we have friends who worked on the show. So we're always going to promote that as much as we can. Now, the reason we picked it this week, though, is Vince Gilligan, who was the creator of the series, is writing a 2-hour movie for AMC channel itself to do the continuation of the story.
Right. And so this is, I don't know that this is a spoiler. The show's been out for 5 years, 6 years now, the finale. So the very end, Jesse Pinkman is driving off and laughing maniacally. He's got he's
trunk full of cash.
Yes. And he has at this point eluded police. He's free, right? He's in a car and he's driving away. Now he's got a lot of legal shit that's going to come down on him.
Right.
And I've heard, like, I'm sort of interested to know what happens, but then I've also heard some people say, I kind of like it the way it ended. You can make up your own adventure in your head.
I like the way it ended. I'm okay if they want to continue on with the story. Does that make sense? Like if they want to continue on with, Jesse. See, one of the fan theories that came out this week about this, and actually, I really want this version to happen. Is in Walking Dead, Blue is a real thing.
Right.
And the outbreak starts in Atlanta. So wouldn't it be a cool story to connect the two series?
Yeah.
To have Jesse go to Atlanta, start cooking Blue, mix it up the wrong way, and then that's what starts the apocalypse. Now there's some holes in that.
Yeah.
You have Fear of the Walking Dead that starts in Los Angeles, which is originally like it all kind of starts at the same time across the world and everything. But
and zombieism is more like a
genetic
disease. Because everyone who dies will turn into a zombie unless you poke them in the brain.
But I like the idea of continuing on with Jesse's story. Aaron Paul is a really, really good actor. I mean, I really like it. You don't think he would be, but he's really good. Now, bringing Bryan Cranston back, they never showed him dying, so
spoilers.
You already talked about Jesse driving away with a car full of
but that's
cash.
not necessarily a spoiler.
But the idea of having the show, having 1 2-hour episode to tell Jesse's story later on, I think is really cool. They're talking about doing the same thing with Andrew Lincoln's Rick Grimes. They're going to do 3 movies with him.
Right.
So that idea, I just think that's a kind of a cool idea. But if you haven't watched Breaking Bad, go watch Breaking Bad. If you've already watched it, watch it again, that kind of thing. We would watch it again if we had the time. We have 3 more stories we're going to do. We're going to do those top 3 on the page there. The number 1 source for Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars news is Bob Iger. Bob Iger is the CEO of Disney. And once a quarter, he does IgerCon, which is essentially the earnings call he does with the investors and the shareholders. And this week I did an episode of Pop Culture Cult News where we talked about the I need to find that, actually, the ticker tape thing. We're going to talk about it really quick. The first one, Tom Hiddleston has officially been announced as Loki in the Disney Plus series.
Right.
It was a rumor before. Even he came out and said, "Yep, it's happening. We've got more mischief to do." And so Variety reported it months ago, and Collider kind of backed it up. But they officially, everybody has said, yes, it's happening.
Right.
No timetable for it, but I'm expecting it to come out when the streaming service becomes available in the fall of 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's another one you're going to talk about, but they could have 3 or 4 new shows to hit, and then they've got everything in the Disney vault to kind of fill that up too while they make some more. Yeah.
The other one that was announced, that Diego Luna is going to return as Cassian Andor in a Rogue One prequel in the Star Wars universe. Now, we know The Mandalorian is happening with Jon Favreau. And maybe Pedro Pascal playing the Mandalorian. Nothing official yet. I'm going to go with that story until I'm told differently. But there was no rumor of another Star Wars show coming at all.
Yeah.
There was no talk. There was no information. There was no, there was some rumblings in a conversation once. And then Bob's like, oh, yeah, we're doing this one.
Yeah.
And then StarWars.com had a full article with a quote from Diego Luna. So they've been working on this one for a while.
Yeah, they've been super quiet about it. And I'm like, this is the one I'm the most excited about.
Yeah, it's going to be a spy thriller.
Yeah.
I talked about it in our little news thing. This could be a easier to film, smaller, more intimate story.
Yeah.
Even The Mandalorian is going to be a smaller story than a big Star Wars movie, right? But there shouldn't be a ton of special effects to do with this one, and more espionage and spy stuff and that kind of thing.
I mean, he has a ship, right? So, he has a ship when you get to Rogue One. So there's the potential for some space stuff. Although at this point, do they just fire up the old computer and go put this ship here?
Oh, well,
zoom?
I'm sure that's what it is right now. They're also one of the first questions that she asked, I asked, a lot of other people asked, is K2SO going to be in it? There's nothing official about him being in it. There is a one-off comic that happened that is the meeting of Cassian and K2 and how Cassian reprogrammed him and everything. So there's a one-off comic of that. So it's kind of already been touched. So it'd be nice that maybe he's part of the series already, kind of thing.
Yeah, get the between that comic and Rogue One. You have all that time.
And the idea of it's a one-off 10-episode series leading up to the events of Rogue One. One of the things that could possibly happen, no official word, I'm going to go with this fan theory. There is a possibility that Cassian has to do stuff with 18, 19-year-old Princess Leia.
Okay.
Who could especially after Halloween, be played by Millie Bobby Brown.
She's working that program.
She is working that
And she looked
program.
good.
She looks the part. There is some fan art that happened about a year and a half ago of Millie Bobby Brown dressed as Princess Leia. Millie's a little young for Leia at that point in time. Right now,
Yeah.
she's like 16 or 17
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So she's a little young. However,
It works.
it works.
Totally works.
And if you're going to do more Leia stuff, instead of CGIing a different character, just recast her with somebody who looks just like her.
Yeah, the little touch upon, right at the end of Rogue One, right, when she gets the chip before she puts it in, that was perfect.
Yeah, I love that.
You can't recast that because that is so embedded in everybody's minds.
Right.
But yeah, if you're going to do anything more than that, you really need to recast
and
her.
it's not like Millie Bobby Brown can't just come in and do a week or whatever in LA where she already is.
Well, and if it's a 10 series limited or 10 episode limited series, one episode could involve Leia. So a week and you're
really
done.
Easy. And I really, really want to see that. I was super excited about The Mandalorian because that's a part of the Star Wars universe that we've touched on in Rebels and in Clone Wars, but the live action version is something I really want. But the spy part, grabs me 100%.
Yep.
I love spy stuff, and so having that in the Star Wars universe, and here's my money. I've already said this. I'm waiting for them to say it's going to be $9.95 a month or $19.95 a month or $999,000.
It would be comparable to Netflix, and
which is
Netflix
12
is
something like that.
$11.99 a month.
Okay,
so
$12. One last story that we want to bring up, and we're still working out the details on this one. There's a show in the early 2000s called the 4400. It was an idea of 4400 formerly missing individuals show up one day.
Right.
And they were 4,400 people from different time periods throughout the history of the United States, and they all just show up one day.
Yep.
And now they have to be reintroduced into society, and
where did they go, why are they back?
Is aliens involved? Are aliens not involved? It was and the first 2.5 seasons are pretty amazing television.
Yeah.
And then I think that was right around the writer's strike time period when that all happened.
It might have been because I know we just stopped watching, and I've heard a couple other people say the same thing, that it was great, and then they just stopped about the second, third season.
Yeah. So they are going to do a reboot, reimagination, however you want to. It's a reboot, and it's coming to CW, I believe, is what I read, and it is going to be the original. So they're going to do an updated timeline. So up today with a new cast because Michaeli Ali
is way too busy.
Actually, one of the first shows we were like, that guy can act.
Yeah.
But it's going to be co-written by Craig Swinney from Elementary and Taylor Elmore, who did Justified. And both of those series are very well respected by everybody.
Yeah.
So does this make sense?
So, yes and no.
Okay,
so
that's about where I feel.
I'm concerned because it's CW, and
right.
CW has a formula.
I think it was CW. Keep talking.
Okay, they have a formula, and it's not. It's very, Vampire Diaries, teen friendly, and this show, this idea, has got so many levels, right? For and I think it was Mikhail Ali's character was the guy from the 50s.
Yes.
Who was
in love with a
white woman, and how that was so taboo then, and then he comes to now, and it's a lot of culture shock. So there's all of that, those layers of stories, besides the fact where have they been, how come they're back, right?
Right.
So I mean, there's so many stories to explore with this, and that's awesome. And they could hopefully do, a better job or a good job. But I'm just not sure. I mean, I would have liked to have seen it on like AMC or Sci-Fi.
So it says here, this is the article from Collider, and it says the 4400 is getting a reboot at the CW.
Yeah.
And
So
then
it's the CW.
the reboot comes from CBS Studios, who produced the original series as CBS Paramount Television. So it is going to be not necessarily the CW has been rebooting a plenty of lately, Charmed, Destiny. So
Dynasty.
Dynasty.
Yeah, I would
The quote,
prefer
though,
it-
is interesting from them. It says, over the course of recent history, 4,400 young adults in their reproductive prime have gone missing all over the world. Some disappearances happened as recently as a few weeks ago, and others date back far back as the infamous day the Soviets launched Sputnik satellite in 1957. One day in 2019, all 4,400 showed up at the sites of their original abductions. None of them have aged a day. None have any memory of where they have been. The so-called 4,400 must grapple with the return to the changed and hostile world, and also contend with the reality that they've come back altered in ways that none of them yet understand.
So
Dun, dun, dun. I'm having, now that I've fully read the quote, I'm really having questions. Because if you're going to do young adults in their reproductive prime,
yeah, that's not what the original one was, because there
Yeah.
was an older couple
Yeah,
that got
yeah.
abducted or
and
disappeared.
a younger girl,
Yeah, a little girl.
and yeah.
This is almost like, what was that other one? The 1,000 or
the 100.
the 100.
The 100, yeah.
Meets 4,400 meets CW. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I've stopped
having
caring about the show.
100 is supposed to be really good, but it's
I've watched.
it's
I
Lord of the
watched, like,
Flies kind of thing.
Yeah, I watched the first season, and it was very CW. It was very Vampire
Yeah, yeah.
Diaries.
Which is weird because Arrow has some CWE kind of things to it, and so does Black Lightning. But that's not really how their shows are. They're
They're a little more adult, but they still.
Yeah. This one, I like the idea of having the conversation of the social difficulty for a lot of them coming from 1957, early 60s kind of
Right.
thing, and then coming in today. You have openly gay people, openly transgender. You have mixed couples, all that, having that kind of conversation. What's really grabbing me is the reproductive prime. And if you're going to lean into that, then you have to lean into it's aliens, and you have to have a subplot of some boss lady or boss or whatever trying to manipulate certain things to happen to change. I'm writing a better show right now than anything that
We've seen like 3 of these shows.
V was kind of this
V,
way,
yeah, that's what I was
and
thinking
yeah,
of,
so.
maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so that's our TV time this week, guys. Are you interested in the 4400? Have you watched The Bodyguard or The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina? There's no other way to say it. And what do you think about the lawsuit for Sabrina brought by the Satanic Temple? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing a Doctor Who review here later, so watch out for that. And get a hold of us on our social media network. We are on Facebook at PopCultureCult. We're PopCultureCult1 on Instagram, at Pop_Cult1 on Twitter. Until the next time, good morning.